The Bridge and the Mermaid. A Tale of Ignorance and Retribution. Disclaimer. The following story is based on an alleged true story. While the events and characters portrayed in the story are inspired by real-life incidents, certain details and plot elements may have been altered or fictionalized for dramatic effect. The purpose of this story is to entertain and inspire, and not to provide a completely accurate representation of the actual events that may have occurred. The Masowe River, a smaller river that flows into the Zambezi River in Zimbabwe, is known for its picturesque scenery and rich cultural heritage. It is also the subject of many myths and legends, including the tale of the mermaids who allegedly caused the abandonment of a bridge construction project. While the story may be viewed as a cautionary tale, it also highlights the strong belief in mystical creatures that exists in many African communities. This story is loosely based on the alleged true events surrounding the mermaids of the Masowe River, and delves into the intersection of myth and reality in this enchanting part of the world. Sam was a recent graduate from one of the most prestigious engineering colleges in the United States, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT. He had always dreamed of making a difference in the world, and when he was offered the opportunity to oversee the construction of the Masowe River Bridge in Zimbabwe, he knew it was his chance to make his mark. Sam was a tall, lean young man with a strong athletic build. He had short dark hair that was neatly styled and a clean-shaven face with sharp angular features. His piercing blue eyes were framed by thick eyebrows and he had a strong jawline. His blue eyes sparkled with a youthful energy, and a warm smile that lit up his face. As one of the few engineers chosen for this project, Sam felt a sense of pride and responsibility. He was young and eager, with a strong work ethic and a deep knowledge of the latest engineering techniques and technologies. In the months leading up to his departure for Zimbabwe, Sam dove into books and papers he could get his hands on about the culture and people of Zimbabwe. He was eager to make a good impression and show his respect for the local customs and beliefs. Sam was determined to not only oversee the construction of the Masowe River Bridge, but to also learn as much as he could about the people he was working with. As Sam and his team arrived at the construction site between the villages of Monde and Dare Kar, they were greeted by a breathtaking view of the Masowe River. The river flowed gently below, surrounded by lush vegetation and towering trees. The occasional sound of birds chirping and monkeys playing in the distance added to the tranquil atmosphere. The site was abuzz with activity, with workers from the two villages preparing the area for bridge construction. The sounds of hammers hitting nails, machines whirring, and voices calling out in different languages filled the air. Sam walked around the site, checking the progress on the foundation of the bridge and speaking with the workers. He made an effort to learn more about the local customs and traditions, appreciating the opportunity to immerse himself in the culture. As the sun began to set, Sam and his team gathered around a campfire, sharing stories and enjoying a meal of traditional Zimbabwean cuisine. Sam felt a sense of gratitude for the opportunity to work in such a beautiful and welcoming place, and he looked forward to the challenges and rewards that lay ahead. The next morning, as Sam and his team returned to the bridge construction site, they were shocked to find that their work from the previous day had been undone. The wooden planks and scaffolding they had painstakingly put in place had been removed, and scattered haphazardly around the area. It was as if a strong gust of wind had swept through, but the air was still and there was no evidence of any disturbance in the surroundings. Confused and frustrated, Sam and his team tried to make sense of what had happened. They searched the area for any signs of intruders or vandals, but found nothing. As they stood there, scratching their heads and pondering the mysterious events of the night, they noticed a group of locals approaching them from the nearby Monde village. Sam and his team quickly made their way towards the group, eager to find out if they had seen anything suspicious. As they got closer, they could see that the group was led by the village chief, a wise and respected man, named Moyo. Moyo greeted them warmly and asked about the commotion at the construction site. Sam explained what had happened, and Moyo listened intently, stroking his beard thoughtfully. After a moment of silence, Moyo spoke up. "This is not the work of any human. There are spirits that dwell in the river, and they do not take kindly to interference with their domain." Sam was taken aback by the chief's words, but he knew that the belief in spirits and mystical creatures was deeply ingrained in the local culture. As they stood there, a man approached them from the construction site. It was Edmund, the project manager for the bridge, who had been observing the conversation from a distance. "Excuse me, gentlemen," he said, walking towards them. "I couldn't help but overhear. With all due respect to the local traditions, we are professionals in our field, and we are here to do a job. We cannot let these superstitions hinder our progress." Edmund was a stout man with a brash demeanor. His sharp features and slicked-back hair gave him an air of arrogance. He was driven solely by profit and had little patience for the customs and beliefs of the locals. As Moyo spoke, Edmund rolled his eyes, clearly uninterested in the chief's words. Sam glanced at Edmund, uneasy with his dismissive attitude. He knew that the success of the project depended on the cooperation of the villagers, and their respect for the land. He opened his mouth to speak but thought better of it, knowing that Edmund would not take kindly to any objections. Moyo, sensing the tension, nodded curtly. "Very well, Mr. Edmund. But know that if you proceed without the proper respect for the spirits, there may be consequences." With that, Moyo and his group departed, leaving Sam and his team standing by the riverbank, the sound of Edmund's angry shouts ringing in their ears. After the tense conversation with Chief Moyo, Edmund ordered the team to set up a night watch. He was convinced that someone was trying to sabotage their efforts, and he wasn't going to let that happen. Sam was assigned to the second watch, which began just after midnight. The night was calm, and the only sounds were the gentle rustling of the trees and the occasional hoot of an owl. Sam tried to keep himself awake by walking around and checking the perimeter, but the monotony was starting to get to him. Suddenly, out of the corner of his eye, Sam saw a flash of movement in the water. He turned his head and saw what appeared to be a person swimming in the river. He rubbed his eyes and looked again, but the creature was gone. Sam was convinced that he had just imagined it. He was tired, and the stress of the project was starting to get to him. He shook his head and tried to focus on his duties, but his mind kept drifting back to the strange sight he had just witnessed. When the morning sun rose, Sam was relieved to see that the night had passed without incident. But his relief was short-lived when he saw that the bridge had once again been destroyed. Edmund was livid. He accused the night watch of negligence and demanded that they work harder to prevent any further sabotage. Sam wanted to explain what he had seen, but he knew that Edmund wouldn't believe him. The team spent the day repairing the damage, but the incident had shaken them all. They were starting to realize that this project was more than just a job. There were forces at work that they couldn't understand or control, and they were beginning to fear that they might never be able to finish the bridge. As the night went on, the wind began to pick up, and a sudden storm rolled in, causing the trees to bend and sway. Sam tried to keep watch, but the heavy rain and strong winds made it difficult to see or hear anything. Suddenly, a massive whirlwind appeared out of nowhere and tore through the campsite, knocking over tents and scattering equipment. Sam was thrown to the ground and struggled to get up as the whirlwind passed. As he looked around, he saw something in the water, a flash of silver and white, but it was gone in an instant. He rubbed his eyes, unsure if what he saw was real or just his imagination playing tricks on him. The rest of the night passed without incident, but when they woke up in the morning, they found that the bridge had been destroyed again. Edmund was furious and demanded that the workers start rebuilding immediately. Sam hesitated for a moment, remembering what he had seen the night before. Could it have been the work of the mermaid? He decided to investigate further, hoping to find some answers to the strange occurrences that had been plaguing the construction site. As they worked on rebuilding the bridge, the weather took a sudden turn, with dark clouds gathering overhead and thunder rumbling in the distance. The workers became uneasy, sensing that something was not right. Just as they finished rebuilding the bridge, a massive bolt of lightning struck the water, causing it to churn and boil. The workers ran for cover, as a massive whirlwind formed over the river, throwing debris and causing chaos. Sam watched in awe. He saw a figure in the whirlwind, a beautiful woman with long silver hair and a shimmering tail. It was the mermaid, and she was seething with anger. Sam couldn't believe his eyes, but as quickly as the whirlwind had formed, it dissipated, leaving nothing behind but a sense of unease, and a feeling that they had angered something powerful and dangerous. The workers were shaken, and Edmund was furious that they had wasted time and resources on rebuilding the bridge, only for it to be destroyed again. Sam knew that they had to find a way to appease the mermaid and the spirits of the river before it was too late. Sam and his team approached Moyo, who was busy conferring with the other village elders. They had come to discuss the ongoing problem with the Masowe River. The water levels were getting dangerously low, and the villagers were starting to suffer. Moyo turned to them as they approached. "Greetings, Sam. I'm glad you're here. We have a serious problem with the river." Sam nodded. "Yes, we've noticed the water levels dropping too. It's affecting our construction work as well." Moyo sighed. "It's not just that. Our boats and fishing equipment have been damaged, and we've had strange accidents and disasters that seem to have no natural cause. We believe the mermaids are angry with us." Edmund scoffed. "Mermaids? That's nonsense. We need to find a rational solution to this problem, not blame it on mythical creatures." "But what about the accidents that have been happening? The boats and fishing equipment being damaged? The water levels getting dangerously low?" Sam pressed. "Coincidence. Just coincidence," Edmund retorted, dismissing their concerns. Moyo shook his head sadly. "Edmund, you are a man driven by money and greed. You are blind to the signs around you, and the harm you are causing. I suggest we consult with the traditional healer of our village before making any further decisions." Edmund sneered. "Traditional healer? More superstition. I have no time for this nonsense. We will continue with the construction as planned, and that's final." With that, Edmund stormed off, leaving Sam and Moyo standing by the river, unsure of what to do next. As Sam and the rest of the team reluctantly returned to the construction site, they couldn't shake off the feeling that something was not right. The air was thick with tension, and the sky had turned an ominous shade of gray. Suddenly, a powerful gust of wind picked up, sending debris flying and causing the workers to scramble for cover. As the wind howled and the skies grew darker, a figure appeared in the distance, rising up from the water. It was the goddess of the water herself, with dark brown skin and hair as white as the foam on the waves. Her face was both youthful and ancient, and her torso was visible, adorned with scales that shimmered in the light. As the team watched in awe, heads began popping up from the water as far as the eye could see. It was a declaration of war. As if in a trance, Edmund started to walk towards the water. His face was ghostly white, and there was a look of terror plastered on his features. His steps were slow and deliberate, as if he was being drawn by some irresistible force. Sam watched in horror as Edmund kept walking, heedless of the danger that lay ahead. When he reached the water's edge, Edmund stopped and gazed up at the magnificent goddess towering over him. The water around her seemed to shimmer and glow, illuminating her features in a soft, ethereal light. Her skin was a rich, dark brown, and her hair was white as snow, cascading down her back in thick, flowing waves. Her face was youthful, yet there was an ancient wisdom in her eyes that spoke of eons of knowledge and experience. As Edmund stood there, transfixed, the goddess reached out a hand and gently cupped his chin. Her touch was both electric and calming, sending a shiver down his spine. For a moment, time seemed to stand still as the two locked eyes, the weight of her gaze bearing down on him like a physical force. In that moment, Edmund felt as though he was gazing into the very heart of the universe, and for the first time in his life, he felt truly small and insignificant. He felt as though he was being judged, not just as an individual, but as a representation of all humanity. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, the moment was over. The goddess withdrew her hand and turned to the water, where the other mermaids had gathered. As she leapt into the water, the rest of the mermaids followed, creating a stunning display of grace and power that left Edmund and the rest of the construction crew breathless. As the sun rose on the next day, the construction site lay empty and abandoned. Edmund had packed up and left under the cover of darkness, not even bothering to say goodbye to Sam and the rest of the team. As Sam and his team drove away in their truck, they could hear the distant sounds of chanting and singing coming from the village. The traditional healer had begun the rituals to appease the angered spirits, and the villagers were gathered to support and participate in the ceremony. The events of the previous night had left everyone deep in thought, lost in their own introspection. The silence was only broken by the occasional sound of the wheels hitting a bump in the road. As they drove further away from the village, the sounds of the traditional healers chanting and the villagers singing and drumming faded away into the distance. It was as if they were leaving behind a world of magic and wonder, and returning to a mundane reality.